The Galactic Council chamber fell silent when Ambassador Krell walked through the massive doors. His four legs clicked against the polished floor as he moved toward the central platform. The representatives from 100 different worlds watched him with their various eyes, antennae, and sensory organs. They all knew why he had called this emergency meeting. "Distinguished members of the Council," Krell began, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into the common tongue. "I bring news that will change everything we know about the galaxy. We have made contact with a new species. They call themselves humans." A wave of murmurs passed through the chamber. New species were always exciting news. The galaxy was vast, and finding intelligent life was still a rare event. Many representatives leaned forward, eager to hear more. "Tell us about them," said High Counselor Veth, a tall being with silver scales and 6 arms. "Are they peaceful? What technology do they possess? How many worlds do they control?" Krell took a deep breath through his neck gills. "They control only one world, which they call Earth. Their technology is primitive compared to ours. They have only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. By our standards, they are children in the cosmic sense." "Then why call an emergency meeting?" asked Representative Zix from the Thornax Collective. "We encounter primitive species all the time. We observe them, we study them, and when they are ready, we welcome them to the galactic community." "Because," Krell said slowly, "these humans are unlike anything we have ever encountered. I have spent 6 standard months observing them, and I believe they represent the greatest threat this council has ever faced." The chamber erupted in surprised sounds. Representatives spoke over each other, demanding explanations. High Counselor Veth raised all 6 arms, calling for silence. "Ambassador Krell," Veth said carefully, "you just told us they are primitive. How can a primitive species threaten a galactic civilization that spans thousands of worlds?" Krell activated the holographic display in the center of the chamber. Images of humans appeared, showing them in various situations, working in fields, building structures, playing with their young, fighting in wars. "Let me explain what makes humans dangerous," Krell said. "First, they are impossibly durable. Their planet is a death world by any standard classification. The gravity is crushing. The atmosphere contains a highly reactive gas they call oxygen. Their star bombards them with radiation. Predators hunt them. Diseases attack them constantly, and yet they thrive." He changed the image to show a human running. "They cannot run as fast as many species, but they can run for hours without stopping. They literally chase their prey until it collapses from exhaustion. They call this persistence hunting." "Disturbing," muttered Representative Zix, "but not threatening to a space-faring civilization." "I am not finished," Krell said. "Humans have a biological response called an adrenaline rush. When threatened, their bodies release chemicals that make them stronger, faster, and almost immune to pain. There are documented cases of humans lifting vehicles to save trapped family members, vehicles that weigh thousands of their weight units." More murmurs spread through the chamber, but Krell continued. "They heal from wounds that would kill most species. They can survive losing limbs. They deliberately cut themselves open to repair internal damage, and then they continue living as if nothing happened. They call this surgery." "All of this is concerning," High Counselor Veth admitted, "but surely our technology can handle physical threats." Krell changed the display again. This time it showed human history, wars, battles, explosions. "Here is what truly frightens me," he said. "Humans are the most violent species I have ever studied. They have fought wars continuously throughout their entire history. They have developed weapons capable of destroying their own world multiple times over. They have killed each other by the millions." The chamber grew very quiet. "But that is not the worst part," Krell said. "The worst part is why they fight. Other violent species we have encountered fight for territory, for resources, for dominance. Humans fight for these reasons too, But they also fight for something else entirely. They fight for each other. He brought up a new image, a human female holding a small human child. Humans have an emotion they call love, Krell explained. It creates bonds between them that are almost impossible to break. They form these bonds with their mates, their children, their friends, and even with other species. Their planet is full of creatures they have formed bonds with. They care for these creatures, protect them, and treat them as family. That sounds pleasant, not threatening, said Representative Nix from the Harmony Worlds. You do not understand, Krell said, his voice grave. When something threatens those they love, humans transform. All their violence, all their persistence, all their impossible strength focuses on one goal. They will stop at nothing to protect what is theirs. Nothing. He showed another image, soldiers charging into battle. Their military history is full of examples. Soldiers throwing themselves on explosives to save their friends. Parents fighting to the death to protect their children. Entire nations going to war to rescue prisoners. They have a saying for this. They say they will go through the gates of their version of the afterlife itself to save those they love. High Counselor Veth shifted uncomfortably. You are saying that if we threaten them, they will fight back with everything they have. No, Krell said. I am saying something far worse. Their reaction is not proportional. If you harm someone they love, they will not just fight back. They will hunt you, they will find you, and they will make certain you can never hurt anyone again. They call this vengeance. The word hung in the air, heavy and dark. I studied their stories, their myths, their entertainment, Krell continued. Their most beloved tales are about vengeance, about heroes who track down those who hurt their families and destroy them utterly, about ordinary individuals who become unstoppable forces of destruction when their loved ones are threatened. Surely these are just stories, Representative Zix said, though his voice was uncertain. Their stories reflect their nature, Krell replied, and I witnessed this nature firsthand. The chamber fell completely silent. During my observation mission, there was an incident, Krell said slowly. One of my team members, a young scientist named Vorn, was curious about humans. Too curious. He violated our protocols and approached a human dwelling to observe more closely. Krell paused, remembering. Inside the dwelling was a human female and two small human children. Vorn accidentally triggered their alarm system. The female saw him through a window. She saw an unknown alien creature outside her home, near her children. What happened? Veth asked. She attacked him, Krell said. With no weapons, no plan, no knowledge of what she faced. She simply saw a potential threat to her offspring and she attacked. By the time we reached him, she had broken 3 of his limbs and was attempting to remove his head. She was screaming at him, demanding to know what he wanted with her bobbies. Krell let the silence stretch. This was an ordinary human female, he said finally. She had no military training. She worked in an office handling numbers and documents. But when she believed her children were threatened, she became a predator. We barely managed to escape with Vorn alive, and she chased us, on foot, for miles, still screaming. The representatives of 100 worlds stared at him in horror. This is what we face, Krell said. A species that treats violence as natural as breathing. A species that bonds deeply and protects fiercely. A species that will pursue vengeance across any distance, for any length of time, against any odds. What do you recommend? High Counselor Veth asked quietly. I recommend that we never, under any circumstances, give the humans a reason to seek vengeance against us. I recommend that we treat them with the utmost respect and caution. And I recommend that we pray to whatever gods we worship that they never form bonds with any other species in the galaxy. Krell looked around the chamber. Because if they do, they will protect those species the same way they protect their own. And may the stars help anyone who threatens them. 3 standard years passed after Ambassador Krell's warning. The Galactic Council debated extensively about how to handle the human situation. Some wanted to destroy them before they became a greater threat. Others wanted to welcome them into the galactic community, hoping that integration would make them peaceful. In the end, they chose a middle path. They would observe and wait. During this time, humans continued to expand into space. They established colonies on nearby worlds. They built bigger and better ships. They met other species, and just as Krell had feared, they began forming bonds with them. The first species to befriend the humans was the Prixen, a small, gentle race of beings that resembled fluffy spheres with multiple eyes. The Prixen were merchants and traders, peaceful by nature. They had been bullied by larger species for centuries. When human explorers encountered a Prixen trading vessel in distress, they stopped to help. They repaired the ship, shared their food and water, and escorted the Prixen safely to their destination. The Prixen captain, a being named Fuzz, as the humans called him, unable to pronounce his real name, was amazed by this kindness. No species had ever helped the Prixen without demanding something in return. When he tried to pay the humans, they refused. They said it was simply the right thing to do. From that moment, the Prixen adored humans. Word spread quickly through Prixen space. Humans were kind. Humans were generous. Humans treated the Prixen as equals, not as prey or servants. Soon, Prixen merchants were seeking out human trading posts. They offered the humans fair deals and honest friendship. And the humans accepted. Within 2 standard years, human and Prixen space had become interconnected. Prixen families lived in human colonies. Human families lived in Prixen space stations. Children of both species grew up together, playing and learning side by side. The bond that Krell had warned about was forming, growing stronger every day. The Galactic Council watched with growing concern. "This is exactly what we feared," said Representative Zix during a council session. "The humans have bonded with the Prixen. If we take any action against the humans now, the Prixen will suffer." "Perhaps this is good," suggested Representative Nix. "The Prixen are members of this council. Through them, we can communicate with humans, build relationships, avoid conflict." "You are missing the point," Krell said grimly. He had been promoted to head of human affairs after his warning proved accurate. The Prixen are now under human protection. Any species that threatens the Prixen now threatens the humans as well. "The Prixen have always been vulnerable," Veth noted. "Many species exploit them. Will the humans truly care about threats to their Prixen friends?" Krell was about to answer when an urgent message came through the council communication system. It was from the Drelix Empire, a powerful military civilization that controlled a significant portion of the galactic rim. "Drelix raiders have attacked a Prixen colony," the message reported. "They have taken 500 Prixen prisoners, including 47 children. They are demanding tribute from all Prixen settlements, or they will execute the prisoners." The chamber erupted in chaos. The Drelix were known for their cruelty. They had done things like this before, and the Prixen had always paid. They had no choice. They were too weak to fight back. But this time was different. This time, there were humans on that colony. Captain Sarah Chen was having a normal day when the Drelix attacked. She was a cargo ship captain, retired from Earth's naval forces, running supplies between human and Prixen settlements. She had been on the Prixen colony of Harmony's Rest to deliver medical equipment when the Drelix warships appeared in orbit. She was in a market square buying local fruit to take back to her crew when the first explosions hit. All around her, Prixen civilians screamed and ran. The fluffy little beings bounced in all directions, their multiple eyes wide with terror. Sarah had seen war before. She knew what was happening, but she had never felt rage like this. These weren't soldiers. They weren't enemy combatants. They were merchants and farmers and children, and someone was hurting them. She grabbed the nearest Prixen, a young mother clutching 2 small offspring. "Come with me," Sarah said. "I'll get you somewhere safe." The Prixin mother looked at her with desperate hope. The shelters are on the east side, but my mate, he was at the learning center with our oldest child. I'll find them, Sarah promised. You get to the shelter, go now. She pushed the mother toward the east, then turned and ran toward the learning center. Around her, Drellick's soldiers were appearing, tall reptilian beings with energy weapons. They were shooting anyone who resisted and grabbing prisoners with their clawed hands. Sarah had no weapon. She had no armor. She was one middle-aged human woman against an invading army. She didn't care. She reached the learning center just as Drellick's soldiers were dragging Prixin children out the door. Teachers were trying to protect their students, but they were small and gentle and no match for the armed raiders. Sarah didn't think, she just acted. She ran at the nearest Drellick soldier and hit him in the throat with her elbow. He went down gasping. She grabbed his weapon, turned and shot the next two soldiers before they could react. Then she stood in front of the learning center door, weapon raised, and screamed at the remaining soldiers. Get away from these children. For a moment, the Drellicks hesitated. They had conquered dozens of species. They had never encountered resistance like this. This strange, soft-looking creature had just killed 3 of their warriors with her bare hands and a stolen weapon. Then one of them raised his weapon, and Sarah shot him too. I said get away. The remaining Drellicks fled. They actually ran from a single human female. Sarah gathered the children and teachers and led them to the shelters. Then she went back out. There were more Prixin who needed help. She found the young mother's mate and oldest child, hiding in a collapsed building. She found a group of elderly Prixin trapped in a burning structure and carried them out one by one. She found an orphan child crying in an alley and tucked him into her jacket to keep him safe. By the time the Drellicks finished their raid and left with their prisoners, Sarah had saved over 200 Prixin lives, but she hadn't been able to save everyone. 500 were taken, including families she had come to know, friends who had welcomed her to their world. She stood in the ruins of Harmony's Rest, covered in ash and blood, and made a decision. The Drellicks had taken her friends. She was going to get them back. News of the Drellicks' attack spread quickly through human space. Unlike the Galactic Council, which debated and discussed, humans acted. Within days, ships were gathering, cargo vessels, personal yachts, old military ships bought as salvage and restored by enthusiasts, professional warships from Earth's small but growing space navy. They came from every corner of human space, and they all had the same destination. They were going to rescue the Prixin prisoners. Captain Sarah Chen found herself at the center of this gathering fleet. Her actions during the attack had been recorded by surviving Prixin and shared across the communications networks. Humans had seen the video of a lone woman standing against armed soldiers, protecting alien children with nothing but courage and a stolen weapon. She became a symbol, a hero. She didn't want to be a hero, she just wanted her friends back. There are over 300 ships now, reported her first mate, a young man named David Park. More arriving every hour. The Drellicks are demanding tribute, but the Prixin government is stalling. They're hoping we can pull off a miracle. It's not a miracle, Sarah said. It's a rescue mission. We need to find out where they're keeping the prisoners. Already done, David said. The Prixin intelligence network may be small, but they have contacts everywhere. The prisoners are being held on a Drellick's military base on a moon called Ash in the Drellick's home system. Their home system, Sarah repeated. They'll have their full fleet there, all their defenses. Yes. Sarah looked at the gathering fleet outside her ship's window. 300 vessels, maybe more coming, against the full military might of a galactic power. Not enough, she said. We need more ships, more firepower. We're reaching out to everyone we can, David said, but most species are afraid of the Drellicks. They won't help. Then we'll do it ourselves. A new voice spoke from the doorway. Perhaps I can assist. They turned to see a tall being in a flowing robe. He had silver scales and 6 arms. Sarah recognized him from news broadcasts. High Counselor Veth of the Galactic Council. "Counselor," she said carefully, "I didn't expect to see you here." "I imagine not," Veth said. "The Council has officially decided to remain neutral in this conflict. We will not help the Drellics, but we will not help you either." "Then why are you here?" Veth walked to the window and looked at the gathered fleet. "Because I am not just a counselor, I am a person, and I have watched your species for 3 years now. I have studied you. I have feared you." He turned to face her. "I no longer fear you," he said. "I admire you. What you are doing is foolish by any strategic calculation. You are outnumbered, outgunned, and attacking a fortified position in enemy territory. By all logic, you should negotiate, pay the tribute, accept your losses." "We don't abandon our friends," Sarah said simply. "I know," Veth said. "That is what I admire, and that is why I am here unofficially to offer you something." He pulled a data device from his robe. "This contains detailed information about Drellic's military capabilities, fleet positions, and defense networks. It also contains the access codes to the slave-holding facility on Ash. These codes were obtained by our intelligence services and are classified at the highest level. By giving them to you, I am committing treason against the Council." Sarah took the device. "Why?" "Because I have a daughter," Veth said quietly. "She is young, curious, and brave. If someone took her, I would want someone to come for her. I would want someone to bring her home, no matter the cost." He paused. "Bring those pricks and children home, Captain Chen, and then we shall see what happens next." He turned and left without another word. Sarah looked at the data device in her hand, then at David. "Get me our ship captains on a secure channel," she said. "We have a rescue to plan." The Prixen prisoners had been held for 2 standard weeks. They huddled together in cold cells, the adults protecting the children as best they could. The Drellics guards taunted them, threatened them, described the terrible things that would happen if their government didn't pay the tribute soon. Among the prisoners was a young Prixen named Puff. He was only 10 standard years old, too young to understand politics or galactic conflicts. All he knew was that the bad creatures had taken him from his home, taken him from his friends, taken him from the nice human lady who brought them fruit and told them stories. He missed Miss Sarah. She had been so kind. She had taught him human games and human songs. She had let him ride on her shoulders so he could see above the market crowds. She had promised to take him on her ship someday to show him the stars. But now she was probably dead. The Drellics had killed everyone who fought back, and Miss Sarah had definitely fought back. Puff had seen her standing in front of the learning center, firing a weapon, screaming at the soldiers. He curled tighter into a ball and tried not to cry. "It will be okay," said an adult Prixen next to him. "Our government will pay the tribute. We'll go home." But Puff knew it wouldn't be okay. Even if they went home, things would never be the same. The learning center was destroyed. His friends were scattered, and Miss Sarah was gone. Then he heard something. It was distant at first, a deep rumble that made the walls shake. The Drellics guards looked at each other in confusion. Then alarms started blaring. "What's happening?" someone asked. A guard ran past their cell, shouting into a communicator. Puff caught a few words. "Hundreds of ships, attacking the defense grid. They're human." "Human?" Puff jumped to his feet, pressing his small, fluffy body against the bars of the cell. "Miss Sarah," he whispered. The battle for Ash began with fire. 347 human ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel simultaneously, appearing all around the Drellics moon. They were a mismatched fleet, everything from sleek military vessels to battered cargo haulers to personal ships barely big enough for a family. But they all had one thing in common. They were angry. The Drellics' defense grid activated immediately, filling space with weapons fire. The human fleet scattered, using their smaller size and greater maneuverability to evade the worst of it. Some ships were hit, some were destroyed, but the others kept coming. At the center of the formation, Captain Sarah Chen stood on her bridge, issuing orders. The data from Counselor Veth was proving invaluable. She knew exactly where the defense platforms were, exactly how to avoid the heaviest fire, exactly when the Drelix patrol ships would arrive. First wave commence ground assault, she ordered. Second wave provide covering fire. Third wave prepare for prisoner extraction. 30 ships broke away from the main fleet and dove toward the moon's surface. They were landing craft, hastily converted from cargo vessels, loaded with volunteer soldiers. Most of them had never been in combat before. They were farmers and engineers and teachers, but they had trained for 2 weeks straight and they were ready. They were going to bring those pricks in home. The landing craft hit the surface hard, disgorging hundreds of humans onto the barren moonscape. They wore makeshift armor and carried whatever weapons they could find. Some had proper military gear. Others had hunting rifles and metal pipes. One man carried a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire. They charged toward the slave facility. The Drelix defenders were taken completely by surprise. They had expected negotiations, not assault. They had expected a small rescue team, not an army. They had expected the soft, peaceful Prixen, not these screaming predators who seemed immune to fear and pain. The first wave of defenders went down in minutes. The humans didn't stop. They moved through the facility like a force of nature, breaking down doors, overwhelming guards, searching every room for prisoners. Inside the holding cells, the Prixen heard the sounds of battle growing closer. They heard energy weapons and human voices. They heard Drelix screams and human war cries. Then they heard the cell doors breaking open. A human soldier appeared in the doorway, covered in dust and blood, grinning like a madman. "Everybody stay calm. We're here to take you home." The Prixen stared in disbelief. Then they started cheering. Puff pushed through the crowd, searching desperately. The human soldier was leading them out, guiding them toward the landing craft. Other humans were appearing, carrying the injured, protecting the children. But none of them were Miss Sarah. "Where is she?" Puff asked anyone who would listen. "Where is the lady, the captain lady?" No one answered. They were too busy escaping. Outside, the battle was reaching its peak. The Drelix fleet had arrived from elsewhere in the system, and the human ships were taking heavy losses, but they refused to retreat. They formed a defensive barrier around the moon, buying time for the ground teams to load the prisoners. "We're running out of time," David shouted over the communication channel. "The Drelix fleet is breaking through." "Hold the line," Sarah ordered from the bridge. "Everyone who isn't on extraction duty, hold that line." Ships exploded around her. Friends died in fire and vacuum, but she didn't look away. She watched every loss, remembering every name. These people had come here because of her. They had died because of her. She would make sure their sacrifice meant something. "Extraction teams report," she called. One by one, the landing craft reported in. They had the prisoners, all 500 of them. They were heading for orbit. "All ships cover the extraction. Get those people out of here." The human fleet reformed, creating a corridor of protection for the landing craft. Drelix weapons fire hammered against them, but they held. Ship after ship sacrificed itself, forming a wall of debris and defiance between the enemy and the rescued prisoners. It took 17 minutes. 17 minutes of hell. But when it was over, every single Prixen prisoner was aboard a human ship and heading for safety. The Drelix fleet, battered and confused, let them go. They could have pursued. They could have destroyed every human ship in the sector. But they didn't. Because they had seen something that terrified them. They had seen a species that would cross the galaxy, sacrifice hundreds of their own, and fight against impossible odds. For people who weren't even their own kind. They had seen the protective instincts that Ambassador Krell had warned about, and they wanted no part of it. The return to Prixon space was a slow journey. The human fleet was damaged, depleted, mourning its losses, but it was also triumphant. They had done the impossible. They had rescued every single prisoner from the heart of enemy territory. Captain Sarah Chen was in the medical bay, helping treat the wounded, when a small voice made her turn. "Miss Sarah." She looked down and saw Puff standing in the doorway, his fluffy body trembling, his multiple eyes wet with tears. "Puff," she dropped to her knees and opened her arms. He launched himself at her, burying his face in her shoulder. You came for us. I thought you were dead." "I'm not dead," she said, holding him tight. "I promised to show you the stars, remember. I always keep my promises." He looked up at her with such pure trust and love that she felt her own eyes burning with tears. "You saved us," he said. "All of you saved us." "That's what family does," she said. "We protect each other." Puff hugged her tighter. "I love you, Miss Sarah." "I love you too, Puff." Around them, humans and Prixon were finding each other, embracing, crying, celebrating. Two species that had only known each other for a few years, bound together now by something stronger than any treaty or alliance. They were family, and the galaxy would never be the same. The aftermath of the rescue of Ash, as it came to be known, rippled through galactic civilization like a shockwave. The Drelix Empire, once feared throughout the Rim, suddenly found itself isolated. Other species who had been bullied by them for centuries now looked at them differently. If a few hundred human ships could do this much damage, what would happen if the humans got really angry? What would happen if they brought their full military might to bear? The Drelix quietly withdrew from several disputed territories. They released all their remaining slaves. They sent a formal apology to the Prixon government. They were not generous by nature, but they were practical. They had seen what humans could do, and they had no desire to see it again. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council was in chaos. "We must act," Representative Zix demanded at an emergency session. "The humans have proven exactly what Ambassador Krell warned us about. They are a threat to galactic stability." "They rescued innocent prisoners from slavers," Representative Nix countered. "How is that a threat?" "They attacked a sovereign power. They violated interstellar law. They did what we should have done centuries ago," Nix interrupted. "The Drelix have been raiding and enslaving for as long as anyone can remember. We negotiated. We debated. We filed formal complaints. The humans actually did something." The chamber erupted in arguments. Ambassador Krell sat quietly, watching the chaos unfold. He had been right about humans. They were everything he had warned about and more. But now, watching the species who had lived in fear of the Drelix suddenly finding courage, he wondered if he had missed something important. High Counselor Veth called for order. When the chamber finally quieted, he spoke carefully. "What the humans did was illegal by our laws. That is fact. But our laws have allowed the Drelix to prey on weaker species for millennia. Perhaps," he paused, choosing his words, "perhaps laws that protect predators and abandon victims are not worth enforcing." Silence fell over the chamber. "I move," Veth continued, "that we open formal diplomatic relations with humanity, not as observers of a primitive species, but as equals. And I further move that we consider revising our laws regarding intervention in cases of slavery and systematic abuse." "Seconded," said Representative Nix. The vote was close, but it passed. Humanity was now an official part of the galactic community. Over the following years, everything Ambassador Krell had predicted came true, but not in the way he had expected. Humans did form bonds with other species, not just the Prixon but dozens of others, the small, the weak, the vulnerable, the forgotten. Humans seemed drawn to them like magnets. They adopted alien pets. They married alien spouses. They raised alien children alongside their own. And they protected all of them. When the Kresh Dominion threatened the Harmony worlds, human ships appeared in their defense. When a plague devastated the Thornax Collective, human doctors arrived with supplies and expertise. When pirates raided the shipping lanes near Prixon space, human warships hunted them down. The galaxy learned a new truth. If you were human, you were never alone, and if you were a friend of humans, you were never unprotected. Some species resented this. They called humans meddlers and busybodies. They complained about human influence spreading too far, too fast. They formed coalitions and alliances to counter human expansion. But they never attacked. They never struck first, because everyone remembered what happened to the Drellics. Everyone knew what humans would do if their loved ones were threatened. The protective instincts that had once been seen as a threat became a shield for the weak and oppressed throughout the galaxy. 10 years after the rescue of Ash, a ceremony was held on the rebuilt colony of Harmony's Rest. Thousands gathered in the central square, humans and Prixon and representatives from dozens of other species. Captain Sarah Chen stood on a platform, looking out at the crowd. She was older now, her hair gray, her face lined with years, but her eyes still burned with the same fire that had driven her to stand against an army to protect children. Beside her stood Puff. He was fully grown now, a respected leader in Prixon society. He had dedicated his life to building bridges between species, to spreading the ideals of friendship and protection that humans had taught him. 20 years ago, Sarah said to the crowd, I came to this world for the first time. I was just a cargo ship captain delivering supplies. I never expected to find family here. I never expected to start something that would change the galaxy. She looked at Puff, smiling. But that's what happened, because we didn't see aliens or strangers or outsiders. We saw people. We saw children who needed protection, families who needed help, friends who needed support. We saw family we hadn't met yet. Puff stepped forward. The humans taught us something, he said. They taught us that strength is not about power or weapons or territory. Strength is about what you're willing to do for others. Strength is about standing up when everyone else sits down. Strength is about love. He turned to face Sarah. Miss Sarah stood alone against an army to protect children who weren't even her own species. She inspired hundreds of people to cross the galaxy to save strangers. She showed us what humans truly are. He paused. They are not the monsters that some feared. They are not the threat that others warned about. They are simply people who love too much and protect too fiercely, and the galaxy is better because of them. The crowd cheered. Humans and Prixon embraced. Other species joined in, celebrating the alliance that had grown from a simple act of kindness. In the Galactic Council chamber, Ambassador Krell watched the ceremony on a display screen. He was old now, retired from official duties but still consulted on human affairs. High Counselor Veth sat beside him. You were right about them, Veth said. Everything you predicted came true. Not everything, Krell replied. I predicted disaster. I predicted war. I predicted that their protective instincts would lead to conflict and destruction. Instead, they led to peace. Krell nodded slowly. I understood their nature but misread their purpose. They are fierce, yes. They are protective, yes. They seek vengeance, yes, but only against those who harm others. For everyone else, they are the most loyal friends the galaxy has ever known. He watched as Sarah Chen hugged Puff on the display screen. I spent years fearing what humans would do if someone hurt those they loved, Krell said. I should have spent that time hoping that they would love us too. The story of humanity's integration into galactic society became legend. It was taught in schools across 1,000 worlds. The tale of the rescue of Ash, of Captain Sarah Chen, of the love between a human woman and a small Prixon child who called her Miss Sarah. But the real legacy wasn't in the stories. It was in the changes that rippled through civilization. Species that had been preyed upon for millennia found themselves protected. Slavery was abolished in system after system as the coalition of human allies grew stronger. Bullies and predators discovered that their victims had friends now, friends who would cross the galaxy to help them. And it all started because humans couldn't stand to see children in danger, because their protective instincts were so strong that they would sacrifice everything for those they loved. The Galactic Council had feared human vengeance. They had feared human protective instincts, and in a way, their fears were justified. Humans were exactly as dangerous as Ambassador Krell had warned. But danger is not always destructive. Sometimes, the most dangerous thing in the universe is someone who loves without reservation and protects without hesitation. Sometimes, the greatest threat to evil is someone who refuses to look away from suffering. Humans loved too much. They protected too fiercely. They sought vengeance too relentlessly. And the galaxy was better for it. On the 20th anniversary of the rescue of Ash, an elderly Sarah Chen sat in her garden on Earth, surrounded by her extended family. Humans, Prixon, and half a dozen other species gathered around her, celebrating the life of a woman who had changed history. Puff, now a Prixon elder himself, sat beside her, holding her hand in his fluffy appendage. "Do you have any regrets?" he asked her quietly. Sarah looked at her family, at the children of a dozen species playing together in her garden, at the grandchildren who carried her legacy forward. "Only one," she said. "I wish I could have saved more." Puff squeezed her hand. "You saved me, and I saved others, and they saved others. The ripples of your love have spread across the entire galaxy." Sarah smiled. "I suppose that's enough." "It's more than enough," Puff said. "It's everything." Above them, the stars shone bright. Somewhere out there, ships flew between worlds, carrying humans and their friends to new adventures. Somewhere out there, someone was in trouble and someone else was rushing to help them. The galaxy was vast and old and full of wonders, but now it had something new. Something that Ambassador Krell had feared and High Counselor Veth had admired, and countless species had come to depend upon. It had humans. Humanity had joined the galactic community not as conquerors or diplomats or scientists. They had joined as protectors, as friends, as family. And the Galactic Council, which had once feared human vengeance and protective instincts, now slept easier knowing that those same instincts stood guard over all who needed them. Because humans loved too much. And they would never, ever stop.